Today I have Sarah Sehgal. She is the Director of Growth Marketing over at Open Sesame. Hey, Sarah.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you.
I'm excited. It's an absolute honor. So I'm excited to chat because you literally just got off the stage of your marketing session. It was
4 minutes ago.
4 minutes, 2 minutes. I got it right on time, guys. You just did a session that was titled Trade Shows Aren't Dead, but Your Old Events Playbook Might Be.
Yes.
This episode, we're going to dive into all of that, and I want to learn all the stats. I want to learn all the tips and tricks and share that with the audience of demand gen marketers, go-to-market leaders on how we can be better at evolving our event strategy as we approach 2025.
Awesome. I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, give me the headline. Give me everything you dove into for your session.
Yeah, I mean, it was, what was really interesting, we really started off with setting the stage that for a lot of marketing teams, especially revenue marketers, demand gen, whatever the term may be now, that there are two big parts of their budget, right? It's all obviously broken out in multiple, but two big parts are usually tech and events. Mm-hmm. Those are often two of the biggest items within any marketing budget. And they're also two of the biggest areas that are really difficult to show return, show business impact. And being here at 6sense at a user conference, that's about tech, it hits both of those. And we really started off by showing that we were in a position that we just renewed 6sense. We did all this work to get the model correct, so now the predictive analytics were in place, and there was pressure from the executive team and our finance of, hey, we're investing the significant amount of money into this platform. What are all the ways that it can be used? And in my experience, I've been a 6sense customer for 4 years, 4+ years, and I've been ABM, ABX for, the last six plus years. And I think events are often an area that it's untapped. Mm-hmm. It's totally untapped because events are usually done in the typical fashion of, all right, we're going to do a trade show, we're going to do any type of event. The event marketing manager does it. Maybe we send a couple emails, do a couple sales emails, and that's it. And we have these tools now and this tech to help with automation, to help with personalization. So we were in a position to actually put our money where our mouth was and say, all right, yes, we just brought this tool on or renewed this tool. We're now going to actually use it for an event. So we had 60 days, only 60 days.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure, right? No pressure. We had 60 days to run an account-based motion for an event that was one of the biggest events that we do. And it was in EMEA. And there was no account-based motion that had ever been run in that region before. So there was a ton of pressure to do it. But really, we got into, and I'm happy to dive in, but, when it comes to alignment, when it comes to how do we actually hack these tools to use it in different ways, to think about GDPR and, regional norms, and really get sales and marketing to be attacking it the right way. And after that, yes, we execute, but how do we actually report on it?
So how did you end up reporting on it? I guess I'll ask that question.
Yeah, it was, and I'm happy to share the link after this of our session. We actually shared a couple of templates that I think are really, really valuable, and we use now copy-paste almost in a way of every event that we do.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, happy to share it. But we reported on it in 2 ways. First was the target account impact. So we built out a target account list, and one of the things that we talked about was how important it was to get alignment with our EMEA sales director on that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just, hey, marketing in a silo creating an account list based off of predictive. It wasn't sales creating their account list without marketing. We actually came to the sales team and said, hey, based off the data that we have and the intent that we have, here's who we think is going to be at that event. And here's, based off of our TAM, here are the accounts that we think makes sense for us to go after in lockstep. And rather than just giving that to them, we asked, it's like, what do you think? Is there any qualitative insight that you have? It's really critical. What I found is it's so critical for sales to feel like they have a hand in it.
100%.
Like they have to feel like their hands have to be part of it, right? Because if their hands are part of it, even if marketing, and I think sometimes marketing get frustrated with that because it's like marketing's doing all the work, doing all building the, the full list and building the plans and everything. And so why does sales get some of that credit? It's not a credit game. You have to do it together. So we got our sales director to get alignment. We had that together, and then we went after those accounts. And that kind of going back to the reporting, that first part was the impact on that target account list. So we looked at what percentage had increased in marketing engagement, what percentage had increased in sales engagement, And because we use 6sense, we rely heavily on those 6sense stages to tell us where an account is in its buyer's journey. And we use 6QAs. So we had over 50% of the accounts that we were targeting move forward in a buying stage. That was massive in the EMEA market because it's still a tiny, like we're not EMEA based. That's a new market. We're only a couple years in. It's really hard to establish in a new market. And to be able to get over 50% of over 300 accounts, which we can talk about in a sec. That was crazy. We had over too many accounts, but over 50% increase there. So we looked on one side of what the target account engagement and those target account metrics. Are we moving this target account list and an account-based motion forward? The other side, though, and arguably the most important, especially with any org that is starting with account-based or this is a new motion, you have to look at business impact and pipeline impact. So we tied on the way we broke it out is what our overall event impact was. So our typical event reporting on what was the number of opportunities, what was the number of meetings booked, number of meetings held, our pipeline and ACV. So we have that broken out. But then within that amount, we looked at the ABX impact. So we looked at, of that total, I think we had about 27 meetings booked. 7 of those were from the account-based motion of those accounts we were targeting. Cool. It's like 7. Okay. Small amount. But as we go down the funnel, even though it's low in quantity, over half of the pipeline was from those 7 meetings, which is insane. Over half the pipeline, and our ACV, comparatively, if I'm keeping the numbers right, our ACV for the total event was, I think, $59K, and for those target accounts, it was $78K.
There you go.
So it's like it proved it, right?
No-brainer.
And that's how we got it to our C-suite and the sales team to get buy-in afterwards of like, hey, we're not just talking about it. It's not just fluff. It's not just an idea. Like, here's the data, and here's a way that we can speak about it in a language that you understand and already use.
I love that. I want to double click a little bit more on what you were talking about, marketing leading the initial target account list and bringing that conversation to sales. Because I wholeheartedly agree that sales needs to feel like they're a part of that conversation and to get their buy-in as well. You know, for the accounts, like they're the front runners. They're going to say yes, no, this, that, an additional accounts list, whatever. Like I wholeheartedly believe that their insights are valuable. Now, a lot of questions that I get from demand gen marketers is how do you go about navigating that conversation with them? Like, let's pretend this was the very first time that we were going to try something account-based, right? What are some like do's and don'ts as you reflect on that initiative today?
Yep. I will say the number one don't, and I've learned by trial and error in the past, and it's the reason why we were able to get this done in 60 days is from the previous trial and error, but the number one don't is do not come to them with views and terms and, any acronym that they don't know. That's number one. Speaking on 6sense, and I said it in the session too, is if this is a new motion, do not start with showing them a 6sense report. Don't you dare. That is like your biggest number one. Do not do that. Do not come to them with talking about, oh, here's a 6QA if they don't already know what that is. So think about flipping that to a do, think about what are the data points, what are the views, the platforms, even if it's Salesforce. Is it a Looker or a Power BI, whatever that may be? What do they look at? And how do you use that language first to come to them? So in our case with sales, I'll give you 2 examples. The one specific to this, 6QAs was already a thing a little bit. It wasn't used as much as it should have been, but it was already known. So when we came to sales with this target account list, we broke it out to say here, we really put it in their language, even though in the back end we were using keywords and our buying stages and all that. We just came to them simply with, hey, here's a list of target accounts that we think are going to be at this event based off of data that we have. Here's where they are in our CRM. Here's who owns them. Here's the segments, again, speaking in their language and getting their buy-in. We didn't go deep into here's their stages. Here's the, where they are in our account fit. Like we didn't talk to them yet because that's noise. So I think that's like the first one is figuring out like what language does your sales team already speak and just come to it with that language only first. You can have your own in the back, behind the scenes, Wizard of Oz of marketing, doing all this stuff, but just come to them simply, even if it's a simple Salesforce account report, even if it's an Excel sheet, doesn't matter. Like, we'll figure out what's going to get them to look at it because they already use this format, and then get alignment.
Yeah, I always, from day one, have felt like I've been preaching marketing 101, which is tailor your message for your audience.
100%.
It's the same thing as we're talking about an actual outbound go-to-market strategy for campaigns and messaging and target accounts, blah, blah, blah. But also as we advocate internally in marketing as well. If we're talking to sales, don't say CTR, LP, whatever other, jargons and stuff. Like, we are almost two different worlds, if you will. Like, we have to somehow sing in harmony. But the acronyms, the lingos, the technology that we use, we're so separate. I always say, like, our brains are semi-wired differently, too.
100%. I think 100%. It's fun. So I actually started in sales. So I started my career selling phone books. That's a whole other story. But I started in sales, like real outside sales. And one of the best pieces of advice that I got that has taken me through my entire career, and it applies especially today, it was by my old sales manager. And we spoke to so many different types of businesses, so many different business owners. And his advice was, don't treat and talk to people the way you want to be treated and talked to. Treat and talk to people that they want to be treated and talked to. And that really shifted something in my brain to where, when I even just speaking to, whether it's partners or CS or my team versus my management, those two, maybe same within marketing, message is completely different. Completely different, right? And it's a muscle, I think, that has to be worked on and built. But I think the best marketers and best go-to-market teams, they think about that both. How do I adjust my message externally and internally?
We're going to get a little bit vulnerable here, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So part of the questions that demand gen marketers ask me is the same deck that you create for the presentation the one that you would show for, like, the campaign brief to the rest of your demand gen team versus the one you share to the C-suite? I say absolutely not, and that it needs to be different. And they're like, okay, well, if I haven't done that before, how do I go about it? And my advice to them is to present it as a learning opportunity, ask them literally to chew you out and to give it to you straight so you can have a learning opportunity to grow in your career. My vulnerable question to you is, have you ever been in a position where you tried to do the upwards and downwards of two different conversations and it gone south?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And what key learnings?
Yeah. Has
what can we learn from today?
Oh, actually, yeah. And kind of recently, I had shared on stage that on our last slide, or the money slide that showed all the data points, I was so excited for it because it had all of our target account information, it had the pipeline, the revenue, the metrics that I know are important to the business. I took a screenshot of that and shared it with my CMO, my CEO, my president, and I was like, hey, we're going to be presenting on this and look at these great metrics. It was a little bit of crickets. And in a conversation that we had, my CEO was like, well, what does this mean? Like, what does it mean? What is the ROI, right? Like, it was really like, what is the ROI? And it was a reminder for me, like, this was recently, it was a reminder for me that it's not, this gets really in the weeds, but it's not just the same language. That is the first step, and that's important. But I think the farther out you go, especially if you're speaking to the C-suite, or especially if you're speaking to teams, the farther out they are from what you do, the more specific you need to make the message for what they do. Mm-hmm. I had to do a lot of explaining and dumbing it down isn't the right word, but reframing what it is we were talking about. Actually, hey, this shows that the investment that we made in this tool and this event, we're getting engagement with the right people and the potential customers, and it's making impact on the pipeline, and here's our ROI. Mm-hmm. That was simple. You didn't need 12 different metrics that are on a slide that are super valuable to my team. Super valuable as we share out, but that wasn't as valuable for him.
Yeah. How do you go about crafting those type of metrics for the different individuals? Because there's one thing and this is me just getting totally nerdy with you, so bear with me. I always tell everybody, like, you've got to pull your metrics, you've got to pull your reports, and you've got to digest it holistically and understand that journey, and then literally throw it out the window and don't share it to nobody. But you need to formulate your key takeaways in a whole nother presentation or deck or Excel or whatever else you want to create to have that conversation. Talk to me about some of the ways that you craft those metrics and whether or not you share those specific decks or sheets with C-suite or everybody else as you go about framing that conversation.
That is, I love the way that you just shared that of how you take it all in and then throw it all out. Take it all in, know it, and then throw it in. Because it's so true. Like, and I'm going to go off a tangent just for a second.
Yeah.
It's like, that is totally what, when we think of B2B marketing and marketing overall, sometimes I laugh and I'm like, gosh, first world problems. Most of the stuff that we are complaining about. I have friends who are in, school psychology and medicine. I'm like, first world problems. But guess it's like the real problems though, like that, what you just described, that is a lot of work. That is not in most job descriptions. That is not what's that's not going to actually show any type of impact immediately, but that is a lot of work that makes really great marketers great marketers. So I love that you said that. When I'll just to take like the biggest step back of super simply, when I think about the metrics to share, I figure out what my audience is already looking at. It came up in our session too of rather than showing a 6sense dashboard or showing a new metric, I know what dashboards and what views my sales team use. Because I have visibility in our C-suite, I know what they're reporting to the board and what data that they're looking at. When I talk to our partner team, I know what data that they're looking at. We talk to each other and look at the same reports, and we actually have a full. We built it this year, like shout out to my marketing ops analysts who helped build this, but built out a database of all the different reports because as you know, y'all don't live in one place. We have reports in Salesforce, we have them in Looker, we have particular sheets in Google, we have all these different places, but we got alignment and it was like, hey, here's our source of truth of all of our reports. And when I think of any type of motion that we're running, any type of change management, when that's being presented to X audience, I need to look at X data points that they're already looking at and fit this message into that type of flow that they're going to receive it.
Let's get tactical here for a minute and learn a little bit more from the session that you had here at 6sense. So the title again was Trade Shows Aren't Dead, but Your Old Events Playbook Might Be. What are some tactical takeaways or tactical strategies that B2B demand gen marketers can use if they want to modernize their events playbook?
Yeah, I'll speak of two specifically. One is just simply creating a target account list and getting that alignment with sales to go after it. So whether you use a 6sense or whether whatever tool you may use, figuring out how do you identify within your TAM who's a target account list for that event. The way that we did it is we looked at, we use 6sense, we look at accounts, and I'll also add a caveat, we didn't have access to the attendee list. It was in EMEA. There's no attendee list there. So I was like, oh, that's great. Awesome. We don't know who the attendee list is. We did have people who attended last year in our database. So we did pretty much a layer of different filters of either accounts that came last year, accounts that have keyword intent for specific keywords associated to that event, accounts that are 6QA, so our qualified accounts that are in London. So that event was in London. So because of the proximity, figuring out, hey, we know if they're in our TAM and they're in London, there's a potential that they're going to be there. So that was how we crafted that first version of the target account list. Again, we went back to sales and then partnered with them on what that is, made adjustments. So we did that and we stamped those in Salesforce. So that way, whenever you're reporting after the event, that's how when I was able to share with you, hey, here's the total event impact and here's the account-based impact. That's how, because we have a field in Salesforce we use to be able to segment out those accounts. So that's the first one, alignment on the target account list. How you go about that we can get into, but at least starting to have that target account list and be able to set benchmarks of how are we going after it. The second one was channels that you're using to target. Our session specifically, the reason when we talked about we talked about contextual advertising, and for those that may not be familiar with that, contextual advertising is a lot different than traditional display advertising. So traditional display, even when you use a tool like 6sense, or if you're in a Google Display Network, anything like that, you can go after whatever account, target audience filters that you want, but it goes into the entire network. Mm-hmm. So that's traditional programmatic display. Contextual layers on specific sites. So you're able to layer on, here are the specific sites or the specific topics of sites that we want to go after. Mm-hmm. What you take away with that is persona targeting, and you take away true persona targeting in terms of, hey, we only want to go after XYZ title. But one of our key areas of emphasis is that because of GDPR, and especially in a markets like EMEA where it is very strict, persona targeting is becoming less and less relevant. It's especially with third parties. So a way to get around that while still getting a message in front of the right audiences is, where are they going to be? What sites are they looking at that we feel confident with, and putting that advertising there while still layering on our account based. Mm-hmm. So we did contextual advertising, targeting, and for Open Sesame is education. So we're professional development, corporate, e-learning, marketplace, and platform. So we did advertising on websites which are like trainingindustry.com, American, I think ADP, and a couple of different sites that are specific to HR and learning and development, and got those ads on there. And it was, we saw great engagement and at least visibility, again, being able to show that engagement there. So those are two of figuring out, if you have to get creative with particular channels, do that. The other piece of, at least that was really important for me when we did this, is we're already spending a lot of money on the event. Mm-hmm. We spent a lot of money on 6sense. We don't need to spend a ton of money on channels, right? LinkedIn is one of our most expensive channels. Google Ads, even when you do just branded terms, it can still be expensive in a new market. So display is relatively a cheaper, at least from a cost perspective, option that still gets some relevance with getting in front of the right accounts. So that was one of the, you have to think about, any marketer, of what are the needs of your business at that time too, and what are the, whatever, guardrails that you have to work within. That's where we worked at, and we're still able to show returns. So next year, we have the confidence to put money into LinkedIn and expand some of our other channels.
I love that. I have one more question for you, because we're running out of time today. And this one, we're going to take a little bit of a pivot from the conversation we were doing before. The big buzz question on LinkedIn right now is demand generation dead? Is it the next bubble that is going to pop and fizzle out? I, of course, have my own opinion on it, but this episode is about you. So I would love to have your 2 cents and ramble and tangent and any rabbit holes you want to go down. What's the last thought that you want to leave demand gen marketers when it comes to hope for the future of our roles?
I will say, until revenue stops being important, demand generation is not dead.
So do you think it's just going to be reframed into a different, coined term?
That's what we do, don't we? That's literally what marketers do. Okay, let's go from, we're doing digital marketing. Oh, no, it's demand generation. Oh, no, it's ABM. No, ABX. Oh, wait, revenue marketing. Go to market. I think there's always a rebranding. I don't know if it's a relevance piece. I don't know if it's identity crisis that we have as marketers in the industry. It's all the things together. But I think demand gen as part of a revenue strategy, and demand gen, when I think of the at the core piece, it's generating demand. A lot of people think of it still as lead gen, and that's a piece. That can be a piece sometimes, but it's truly when you think of demand gen, there is never going to be marketing, especially in B2B, without generating demand. Mm-hmm. Because demand gets attraction, it gets audiences, it gets revenue.
I actually did a whole, in season 1 of my podcast, I did a whole episode on that, where for me, there's 3 components of demand gen. Generating demand, which is the first part. The second part is converting that demand. And the third part is maintaining that demand. Yep. Where a lot of VCs, they throw the dollars in, they scale quickly, but then all of them churn, and we're back at square one. So to create a sustainable and healthy, efficient demand gen model and candidly, like go-to-market model as a whole, those three components have to be considered. So I love that you kind of just validated my own, thoughts in the back of a corner. That it indeed is about generating demand, and how companies go about doing that is going to vary, right? Because every company, audience, budget, strategy, team, skill set, you name it, right? The list could go on, is all different. And so the strategy needs to be as well. So I love that you touched on that. That's all the time that we have for today. What are some places that people can reach out to you and find you and continue this conversation with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect. I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff. I love it. I really geek out over it and really love it. So I'm happy to chat. And like I said, I'll share that deck, the link to that afterwards. And you can put it in the show notes for people to take a look at.
Yeah, it'll be in the show notes for sure. Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Demand Gen Made Simple show. If you found value in today's episode, please consider leaving a review, as it really helps me reach more people just like you. And make sure to subscribe so you can be notified when the next episode drops. Thank you, and see you next time.